Montana Territory, September 1883. The rain came hard that evening, cold and sudden, beating down on the dirt trail that cut through the Bitterroot foothills. A rider came slow through the storm, his coat soaked through and his hat dripping. The sky was fading toward night, clouds black and heavy. That was when he saw her alone by the creek, sitting in the mud, her dress soaked and clinging to her like she did not care if she drowned right there in it. Quinn Gallagher pulled his horse up short. She was curled in on herself, arms around her knees, face buried. Her long brown hair stuck to her neck, her sleeves torn. He stepped down from his horse without thinking. Something in him tightened at the sight of her. She looked young but not a girl. Maybe 22, 23. Broken in a way that had nothing to do with the rain. "Miss," Quinn said, voice low so she would not spook. "You all right?" She lifted her head. Her eyes were red, her cheeks streaked with tears and mud. "Go away." He crouched beside her. "Not while you cry." She said nothing, just stared at him like she could not believe he was real. He held his hand out. "Come on, you will freeze to death sitting here." "I do not care," she whispered. "Well, I do." She looked down again, shoulders shaking. Quinn took off his coat and draped it around her. She flinched but did not move away. Her fingers closed around the wool like she had not held anything warm in days. "What is your name?" he asked. She hesitated. "Loretta." "Loretta what?" "Loretta Monroe," he nodded. "All right, Miss Monroe, I am Quinn Gallagher. My wagon's 2 miles north. There is a fire and dry blankets. Let me get you there." "I am not your problem," she said, voice flat. "Maybe not. But you are not staying here." He reached for her hand. She stared at it like it was a trick, then finally, slowly, let him pull her up. She winced when she stood. Her ankle twisted. Quinn caught her. "You are hurt." "It is not bad." But her weight leaned into him as they walked. Rain soaked them both, but he kept one steady arm around her as they moved uphill. His horse followed, reins dragging. Loretta said nothing more, but she did not pull away from him again. By the time they reached his wagon, the sky had gone near black. The canvas cover dripped with rain, but inside it was dry and warm. A small fire burned low in a ring of stones outside, sheltered under a lean-to. Loretta hesitated at the entrance. "Go on," Quinn said gently. "There is no one else here, just me." She stepped inside, her hands trembling. He followed, closing the flap behind them. She stood there, dripping and unsure. "There is a blanket in the chest," he said. "Dry clothes, too, if you want them." She nodded slowly and moved to the chest. He turned away while she changed. When she emerged, wrapped in a wool blanket and wearing one of his flannel shirts, she looked less like someone lost in the woods and more like someone who might make it through the night. He handed her a tin cup of coffee, hot and strong. She took it with both hands. "Thank you." He sat across from her. "What happened, Loretta?" She stared into the cup. "My husband died last winter, fever." Quinn's jaw tightened. "I am sorry," she nodded. "We had 2 children. Francis is 6, Finn is 3. I left them with his sister in Helena." His heart clenched. "Why?" She said she would help me, that she would find work for me if I came out. But when I got here, she said I was a burden. She kept the children and told me to leave." Loretta's voice cracked. "She said it was better for them if I was gone." Quinn leaned forward. "You just walked away." "I had nowhere to go, no money, no job, and I did not want them to see me beg, so I walked until I could not any more." He shook his head. "You cannot just leave them. She will take care of them. She has her own children." Quinn's voice was firm. "But they are yours." Loretta looked at him, her eyes shining again. "Do not make me go back there." "I am not going to make you do anything," he said, "but I can help you. If you want to get them back." Her lips parted like she might argue, but then she shut them again. Outside, the rain slowed. Quinn looked at her hands. Small, rough from work. She was not a woman who gave in easy. Whatever had broken her, it had taken more than one thing. "You hungry?" he asked. She nodded. He handed her a plate of beans and bread. She ate slow, like she thought it might vanish if she moved too fast. When she finished, she set the plate down and looked at him. "Why are you doing this?" "Because no one should be left crying in the rain," Quinn said. "And because I reckon I would not sleep easy if I rode on and left you there." She looked down. "You do not even know me. I know enough." They sat quiet a while. The fire crackled outside. The storm passed. She leaned back against the wagon wall, her eyes heavy. "You can sleep here," he said. "I will keep watch. You are safe." "Thank you," she whispered. He watched her curl into the blanket, her breath evening out. She looked younger when she slept, softer. But something in her still looked like it was holding on by a thread. Quinn stayed up long after she drifted off, the firelight flickering against the canvas. He had not planned on finding anyone that day, least of all a widow with 2 children left behind. But now she was here, and he could not walk away, not while she cried. By morning, the ground steamed with the last of the rain, and mist curled low over the prairie grass. The fire outside the wagon had gone down to ash, but the air inside held a trace of warmth. Quinn stood at the edge of the clearing, tying down the last bedroll on the supply mule when he heard movement behind him. Loretta stepped out, barefoot but steady. Her hair was tucked into a loose braid, and his flannel shirt hung to her knees. She didn't speak until she reached the cookpot and knelt beside it. "There's some oats in that bag," Quinn said, nodding toward the wagon. "Not much, but enough for 2. She scooped a handful and poured it into the pot without looking up. "You sleep at all, some?" Heard a coyote pass through, but he didn't come close. She stirred the oats into the water with slow, careful movements. "You always travel alone." He folded the last of the canvas tarp and set it aside. "These days, yes. What about before?" Before was a long time ago. She didn't ask more. When the oats thickened, she portioned them between 2 tin bowls and handed him one. They ate in silence, the kind that didn't press. Afterward, Loretta rinsed the dishes in a shallow stream that trickled nearby. When she returned, he was brushing down his horse. "I'll head east toward Helena," she said, arms crossed tight. "You don't have to take me." "I wasn't planning to let you walk, if that's what you mean. I can ride." "You said your ankle was bad. It's better now." Quinn didn't argue. He unhitched his pack horse and adjusted the saddle. "You'll ride this one. She's not fancy, but she's even-tempered." Loretta approached the mare and rested her hand against its neck. "She yours. Belonged to my brother, before he passed." She looked at him then, not with pity, but as though she understood something without needing it explained. "What was his name?" "Walter." She nodded once, then mounted the horse without help. They rode north beneath a pale sky, the ground soft from the storm, gullies still wet. Quinn kept his eyes on the terrain, but he felt her near beside him, quiet but alert. By midday, the sun broke through, and they stopped near a copse of cottonwoods to water the horses. Loretta sat on a flat stone, her boots off, soaking her feet in the stream. "I thought about taking a train out of Helena," she said. "Didn't know where to go. Just wanted to move." "Where would you have gone?" she shrugged. "Didn't matter. I just couldn't sit in that house anymore, pretending like I wasn't in the way." Quinn tied off his canteen. "You think your sister-in-law means to keep the children. She'll say it's what's best. That she can give them more than I can." He knelt by the water, rinsed his hands. "But she can't give them you." Loretta's eyes met his. "You don't know what I've done." "No," he said. "But I know you came near walking yourself empty before you'd let them see you beg. That counts for something." She looked down at the water. "I married young. Thought we'd have this little patch of land, build it up slow, but he got sick, and then the winter came hard. I couldn't make things hold together. You're still standing. For now." They rode again when the sun dipped westward, the light turning golden across the hills. In the distance, A hawk circled high over a ridge, casting a long shadow across the sage. As they neared a split in the trail, Quinn slowed. "We can make camp off the ridge. There's a dry spot I've used before." Loretta didn't answer right away. Then she said, "I used to think I was strong. After he died, I told myself I could manage. But somewhere between the last letter I wrote and the last door closed in my face, I started to believe I'd disappeared." Quinn turned in the saddle. "You didn't." She met his gaze. "Why help me? I don't know," he said. "But I'm not sorry for it." They made camp beneath a bluff of stone, the earth still warm from the sun. Quinn built the fire while Loretta gathered dry grass for kindling. When the flames took, she sat across from him, knees drawn up, watching the sparks rise. "I don't want to go back to that house," she said, "but I can't leave them there." "Then we don't go back to the house," Quinn said. "We go to the courthouse." She looked startled. "You think I could get them back? If it's legal, we'll do it that way. If not, we'll find another." She studied him closely, her voice low. "You don't even know me, and you're willing to do that." "I know enough," he said again, softer this time. She didn't smile, but the way she looked at him changed, as if something inside her had shifted just a little. That night, under a sky full of stars, she didn't curl in on herself. She lay on her side, facing the fire, eyes open. Not watchful, just present. And Quinn, lying across from her, knew there was still a long way to go. But for the first time in a long while, he wasn't walking it alone. They reached Helena by dusk, 2 days later. The city crouched low in the valley like it had grown there by accident. Brick storefronts, wooden porches, smoke trailing from chimneys. It smelled of coal and horses, and the streets were slick with mud where wagon wheels had churned the earth. Quinn guided the horses along the edge of the main thoroughfare, his eyes flicking toward Loretta now and then without turning his head. She rode with her shoulders square and her jaw tight, her borrowed coat buttoned up to her throat. A streak of dust ran across her cheek where she'd wiped sweat from her brow earlier, but she hadn't noticed. She hadn't said much since they crossed the ridge that morning, and he hadn't pushed her. Outside the livery, Quinn handed off the reins and traded a few words with the stable hand, then led Loretta down a narrower lane where the ground was drier. The buildings here were quieter homes set back behind split rail fences, laundry hanging limp in the still air. "She lives in the red one," Loretta said, slowing. Quinn glanced toward it. The paint had faded to rust and the gate hung crooked. A curtain twitched in one upstairs window, then stilled. "We'll wait till morning," he said. "You go in tired. It'll be harder to think straight. She won't want to see me at all. Then we'll make her." He took her to a boarding house run by a widow named Mrs. Haskett. Inside, the parlor smelled faintly of lemon oil and tobacco. The woman showed them to separate rooms without asking questions, though her eyes lingered on Loretta's worn hem and the way her boots didn't match. Once Quinn had settled his gear, he found Loretta standing at the far window of the hallway, staring out toward the mountains. "She won't let me take them," she said, voice low. "You don't know that yet. She'll say I wandered off, that I left them. You didn't sign anything over, did you?" "No. I just walked away." "Then she doesn't have claim. She'll lie if she has to. Then we'll bring the truth louder than she can lie." She looked over at him, her eyes steadier than he expected. "You always talk like that, only when it matters." The next morning dawned sharp and cloudless. Quinn kept his coat unbuttoned as they walked toward the red house, the sun warming his shoulders. Loretta's steps slowed as they reached the gate, but she didn't stop. He let her knock first. The woman who answered had graying hair pulled into a bun too tight for her face. Her eyes landed on Loretta, then narrowed. "Well," she said, "you've got gall." "Where are they?" Loretta asked. "Why do you care now? I want them back." The woman laughed, dry and short. "You left them, walked into town like you were done. I wasn't done. I was drowning. Quinn stepped forward. You keeping them out of kindness or spite? I don't know who you are, the woman said, eyeing him. I'm the one who'll ride with her to the court if this doesn't go right. She looked back at Loretta. You think you can just walk in and take them like nothing happened? I'm their mother. You're a ghost to them. Behind the woman, a small face appeared around the edge of the door frame. A girl's brown hair, wide eyes. She didn't speak, but her gaze locked onto Loretta like she was trying to remember something she'd almost forgotten. Francis, Loretta whispered. The woman turned. Back inside. But the girl didn't move. I want to talk to them, Loretta said. No. I'm not leaving without them, Nettie. Quinn's hand settled at the base of Loretta's spine. Let's take it to the sheriff. Nettie glared at him. You think a badge will make her a mother again? I think the law's on her side. The woman scowled, then turned inside without another word. The door shut hard behind her. A moment later, a lock clicked. Loretta sagged against the gatepost, her breath shaking. She's not going to make this easy, she said. She doesn't have to. She just has to be wrong. They filed the petition by noon. The sheriff, a man with a split lip and a stiff leg, asked a few questions, then nodded once and said he'd see it through. By the time they left the courthouse, Loretta's hands were shaking. Quinn handed her a boiled sweet from his pocket. You'll need your strength for tomorrow, she laughed, surprised by it. You carry candy. My ma used to say it kept the nerves from eating you whole. Loretta turned the candy over in her palm. What was she like? Quiet, tough. Never raised her voice, but we never disobeyed her twice. Did she know what you'd grow into? Don't think she'd be surprised. She tucked the sweet into her mouth, let it dissolve slow. I don't know what happens if I lose, she said after a moment. Then we appeal. And if I lose that, then we make a new plan. But you won't. She studied his face, the lines around his eyes, the way he didn't blink when he said it. I used to think I was good at standing alone, she said, but I think I've just been afraid, he nodded. Fear's not weakness, it's just the truth you haven't faced yet. I'm tired of being afraid. Then you're ready. That night, they sat on the porch of the boarding house, watching the last of the lights slide off the rooftops. She pulled her knees up beneath her and leaned her head against the post. He didn't say anything. Just lit a match and let it burn down to nothing in his fingers before tossing it away. Beside him, Loretta breathed in, then out. Steady. Ready. The hearing was set for the third day after they'd filed. They spent the time in between in quiet preparation, Quinn pacing out the courthouse steps in the early gray. Loretta combing through her memory for the names of midwives and neighbors who could speak to her care of the children before she'd left Dakota. She wrote them down on a scrap of paper, her handwriting tight and slanted, pressing hard enough to score the wood beneath. When the morning came, the courthouse was already humming with voices. Loretta wore a faded calico dress that Mrs. Haskett had pressed with care, and Quinn cleaned the dust from his boots for the first time in weeks. He didn't tell her she looked ready. He didn't have to. In the courtroom, the judge had a voice like dry gravel and a brow that rarely lifted. Nettie sat on the other bench with her husband, a man with a narrow mouth and stiff collar. Francis and Finn weren't present. Loretta did not ask why. The judge listened to both sides. Nettie said Loretta had abandoned them. Loretta said she had been turned out. She spoke calmly, her hands folded in her lap. I did not leave them out of neglect, she said. I left because I had nowhere to bring them, nowhere safe. I believed they'd be better with kin until I could stand on my own. The judge asked questions where she'd lived, who had seen her with the children, what her plans were now. She answered everyone. She did not look at Quinn until it was finished. The judge did not rule that day. They stepped back into the light without knowing. Outside on the steps, Loretta's shoulders were still. Not hunched, not bowed, just still. Quinn settled beside her, one boot on the lower stair. "You did what you came to do." I thought I'd feel like I could breathe. He looked out toward the hills. "Sometimes it takes a while." She pulled a folded paper from her sleeve. "I wrote Frances a letter. I don't know if Nettie'll give it to her, but I had to try." He took it without asking what it said. "I'll see it gets there." She didn't thank him, just watched him go. He found the girl playing with a wooden yoke in the backyard, her dress stained with grass and her fingers sticky with sap. Nettie called from the kitchen window, but Quinn ignored her. "Your mama wrote you something," he said, handing it over. Frances stared at the envelope like it might bite. Then she took it, bolted to the barn, and climbed through the gap in the wall. That night, Loretta didn't come down for supper. Mrs. Haskett brought her a plate. Quinn waited on the porch until the house quieted. When Loretta stepped out, she carried no coat, no shoes, just herself and the night. "I used to think if I just did everything the right way, things would line up," she said. "Like the world owed you clarity if you kept your head down and your hands busy." "It doesn't," Quinn said. "No," she said. "It doesn't." She sat beside him, her bare feet brushing the porch boards. "You always this steady?" "No one is. I just don't show it when I'm not." "Why?" "I learned early if you go soft in front of the wrong people, they'll use it like a lever." She looked at him, not searching for cracks, but taking in the shape of what held him together. "And me? You're not the wrong people." The quiet grew around them, not heavy, just full. "I keep thinking," she said, "if I do get them back, what then? I can't go back to that patch of land. Nothing's left. I'd have to start over somewhere. I don't even know where to begin." "You'd figure it out." "Would I? I've seen you walk through worse than uncertainty." She turned toward him, her voice low. "If I asked you to stay until I do figure it out, would you?" He didn't answer right away. He didn't need to. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. She reached over slowly and took his hand. Not out of desperation, not for comfort. Just because it made sense. He closed his fingers around hers, and they sat like that until the moon rose over the rooftops, pale and whole. The ruling came on a Thursday morning. Sunlight poured in through the courthouse windows, long and gold across the plank floors. Loretta stood with her hands clasped, chin lifted, the hem of her dress brushing her boots as she shifted her weight once, then stilled. The judge read the decision in a voice stripped of ceremony. Custody returned to the mother, effective immediately. No delays. Quinn didn't look at her. He didn't need to. He felt it in the way her breath caught beside him. Outside, she didn't speak. Not until they reached the alley behind the courthouse, where the dust turned soft beneath their feet and a robin trilled from a fence post. "They're really mine again," she said. Quinn nodded once. "They always were. You don't know what that means." "I think I do." She turned to him then, her expression unreadable. "I don't even know where we'll sleep tonight. We'll figure it out. I can't rely on you forever." "I'm not offering forever out of pity." She stepped closer, voice quiet. "Then what is it?" "I want to stay, that's all." Loretta looked down at her hands. "They know you now. Frances looks for you when she hears boots at the door." He waited, letting her find the rest of the words without rush. "I don't know what kind of life I can build yet," she said. "But if you want to be part of it, I won't stop you." "I'll do more than be part of it," he said. "I'll build it with you." She touched his arm, her fingers light but sure. "Then let's start." They walked to Nettie's house one final time, not to knock, not to argue, but to gather what was theirs. Frances waited on the stoop in a clean dress, her small satchel in her lap. Finn clutched a wooden whistle, his eyes bright. Nettie stood behind them, arms crossed, but said nothing. Loretta crouched and opened her arms. Frances stepped into them without hesitation. Finn followed, burying his face in her neck. Quinn took their bags, loaded them onto the pack horse, and nodded once at the woman who had once turned Loretta away. She didn't return the gesture. They left together, no words needed. Quinn found them a place outside of town, a small cabin nestled against a windbreak of pine. It had a stone hearth, a hand-dug well, and a barn with half a roof. It would take work, but the bones were strong. They moved in with little more than the clothes they wore and the blankets Quinn had carried for years. Loretta scrubbed the windows until the glass caught sunlight. Frances helped gather wildflowers and press them into a jar. Finn followed Quinn from room to room, asking questions with his eyes more than his mouth. At night, Loretta read from the single book she'd kept, a psalter her mother once gave her. Quinn carved a new spindle for the door latch. The children slept close, curled together on a straw mattress, warm beneath patchwork quilts. One evening, the wind rose sharp from the north. Loretta stood on the porch, her arms wrapped around herself, watching the trees bend. Quinn stepped behind her, set his hands lightly at her waist. She tilted her head back. "I never asked if you wanted a quiet life." "I want your life," he said. She turned then, slow and steady, and leaned into him. "I want yours too." They married in early spring beneath a cottonwood that had stood longer than either could remember. Frances scattered wild plum petals along the path. Finn held Quinn's hand through the vows, then fell asleep in his lap during the supper that followed. No preacher, no guests beyond the children and the sky, but it was binding and true. Quinn built a new table for them, wide enough for guests they hadn't yet met. Loretta stitched curtains from old flour sacks. The days grew longer, the nights softer. Frances learned to milk the goat. Finn brought home frogs and named each one. They didn't speak often of what came before. It lived in the folds of their story but didn't steer it. On the first frost of October, Loretta stepped outside and found Quinn stacking wood by the shed. She crossed the yard barefoot, her shawl trailing behind her. "You think we'll stay here long?" she asked. "As long as you want." She looked out across the land. "Then I think we're home." He set down the axe, brushed his hand along the edge of her cheek. "You feel like home to me." She leaned into his touch, eyes closed, breath even. "I love you, Quinn," he answered without pause. "And I love you, Loretta." They stood there as the frost turned to mist beneath their feet, the sun rising slow behind the hills. The wind held stillness instead of ache. The cabin behind them was warm. The future waited, quiet and open. And they faced it together, with hands held and hearts steady, every broken piece mended by choice, by time, and by love that had come not in thunder, but in the soft, sure work of staying.